Hi my loves, how's it going? How you guys doing? Welcome back to another video. I'm so excited to share this update with you guys, and it is a really big update as well. But before we get into that, please just make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below, and let's just dive right into the video. I am so excited to share this update with you guys. This time around, it's only going to be an update regarding my Panda face palette, and I generally can't believe I've finally been able to use this up completely. I'm going to insert a picture here so you guys can actually see what this palette looked like last month. And since then, I've been very determined on getting this finished up. I don't think it was last month, it's just whenever I last updated this project plan. So you can kind of see the difference. And it got to a point where it became, and I just knew that if I'd used it up a couple of times, I would have this empty. The blush was the first thing to go. And then I think maybe like 5 or 6 more, between 5 to 10 more uses after that, I was able to use up the highlighter. And the reason I say 5 to 10 is because sometimes I was using it on the face and my eyes. Sometimes I was just using it to highlight like my inner corners and just taking it a little bit just across there. So that's why it took me about, I want to say, around the 10 uses afterwards to kind of completely have this done. And I'm so excited to show this to you guys because it's finally empty. That's crazy. That's actually so crazy. If you see that, it's done. And a year and a half is kind of like a long time to maybe have to spend on using this product up. But that being said, I did face a lot of challenges while I was using this palette. One of them was it did clash with my old hair color when I was basically ginger, and it's supposed to be like an orangey copper, but it turned out more ginger than that, which is absolutely fine, and it was a cool color. But the only problem is when you have colored hair, there you need to take into account that there are going to be shades that sort of clash. This was the one that clashed with that hair. It also didn't help that there was another blush I was panning last year, and it was the same shade as the blush that was in here, which made it really difficult. And not having that sort of variety was quite tricky then in terms of trying to pan things, and then trying to sort of balance both of these products was quite difficult. The bronzer was the first one to go in this palette, and I knew that would be quite easy to use up and get done because it was so stunning. The bronzer shade is Suntan, and that was the first thing to go, and I was so happy when I saw that. And since then, I moved on to other bronzers that I've had in my collection. But if I could, I probably would repurchase that bronzer as like a separate item because it was such a lovely shade and I really liked it. Then I had hit massive pan in both the blushes, and I decided to just repress them together in one pan rather than repress them individually because I was already mixing the two together to use them up. So it didn't really make sense to then have them separate. It felt kind of silly to do that. So I repressed them together and then eventually had that finished. That then left the highlighter. And since the beginning, I kind of had a feeling the highlighter would take me a little bit longer. And I did receive some fairly interesting suggestions with how to pan it up. Quite a lot of the times people did say to use it up as eyeshadow, which I did a couple of times as well. And that sort of helped me with this as too. And I'm just so glad to say that I finally finished this. I think that's such a big success for me to actually use up a palette completely. I've used up individual blushes, highlighters, and stuff like that. But to try and focus on an entire palette, especially one like this, which each item was about 4 grams and the entire palette was 16 grams, is quite crazy to think because there were so many times that I considered just tossing the palette because I could not be bothered with it anymore, or just the amount of challenges that I had with each of these. I don't know if you go back to some of the old videos, you can see and probably hear how frustrated I was with this as well. But I'm so happy that it's finally done. When I got to the point that I was almost done with this palette, I put up a poll on YouTube and also Instagram to see what I should roll in next. And the 3 contenders that I decided on was these 2 palettes from e.l.f. This is the shade Pomegranate, I think. Yeah, this is a shade Pomegranate from e.l.f. It's a duo's blush and a highlighter in. And the other duo is the shade in Cantaloupe. That's such a beautiful shade. I love this so much. If I could get a blush in the shade, I would, and I would buy like a full 10 grams worth of it and use it all the time because it's so stunning and so sexy. You guys don't understand. It's my favorite blush, but I try not to use it because I think they've discontinued these, which is really annoying. But yeah, these are the 2 that I had as an option to sort of pan within this product or project, sorry. And I've actually used this maybe a few times, so it would have been easier to sort of pan this, especially because the highlighter works really well for me. This blush is really stunning, but the highlighter I'm a bit worried about wouldn't really work. So the last product that I had considered probably panning was this Natasha Denona Diamond and Blush palette. She had 2 of these, both for the same sort of shade on the outside, but this is the sort of the darker of the 2, and this is the shade Citrus. I was actually trying to get the lighter one, but that sold out really, really fast they when people found out that these were going to be discontinued. And I kind of regretted it at the time, but obviously now I don't necessarily support Natasha Denona. Um, but I have these products and I'm trying to kind of use these up. But this is the other option that I had, and I watched Alex panning, and she has panned, or at least hit pan in a lot of her ND palettes, and it's taken her about between, I want to say, 80 to 120 roughly. I'm just, there's like a ballpark. It could have been completely different to that, but from what I remember, her using some of these palettes is around that much. And if she's somebody who uses products on such a regular basis, and she can see that progress in a couple of months' time. For me, if it took me literally a year and a half to pan the other palette, this palette would take me 5 years to pan. And I'm not even kidding. It's not even an exaggeration, because it probably would take me 5 years to pan. So I kind of put the vote out, and very overwhelming majority decided for me to pan this e.l.f. palette instead. I will say though, I'm kind of glad that they chose a smaller palette, though I was hoping for the other one. But this shade would be so nice to use during the summer and then go into autumn and winter time using. And I don't think it will take me a year and a half to use this. It might take me maybe a year, because this highlighter is not a shade that I would necessarily use on myself. I'll just try and swatch these for you guys so you can see. It's slightly deeper, so I would have to be very, very careful with how I use that. But the blush is stunning. That's just what it sort of looks like. I really hope you can see that highlighter. It is beautiful, but again, I would have to be kind of careful with it. So yeah, I'm gonna see how long it takes me to use this up. It's now June, so I probably won't start using this until like July time, really. Um, Only because I kind of want to give it a bit of a pause before I go back into panning a palette. And even though it's just a duo, it will still take me some time to use up. And I can't actually wait to play around with this. This one I've only ever swatched. I've never actually truly used it on my face, whereas the other one, like this one, I had used up a few times on my face. I'm actually really, really excited to see how it goes with this. And I think this product is only 4.6 grams, so that's about 2.3 per side, which really wouldn't take me that long to use. Easily, I can easily say that the blush will be the first thing to go. And again, the highlighter will take me a long time to use up, but at this point, I'm okay with that. Again, I'm not trying to like force myself to use up. It's just been nice to use up other products. And where I have so many face palettes, and I've just come to the conclusion that I don't necessarily have the most fun time trying to pan a palette, and I don't really grab that many face palettes to use or even remember them. It's just not worth me buying anymore unless something really stands out to me to the point where it's just like, no, I kind of need that. It's a very unique palette, or if it's part of a collection and it ends up that I want to buy the collection, only then will I really end up with a face palette. Otherwise, I'm trying really hard to avoid them. But yeah, I think that was a very lengthy sort of update, but I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you to everybody who voted in that poll that I posted. And I can't wait to sort of show these updates to you guys as well. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll catch you next week with another video. Bye.